Government's appeal on rising intolerance. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that 2 or 3 people have made controversial remarks and that the BJP President Amit Shah took it up very strongly with them. Rahul Srivastav now joins us from the capital for more on that. Rahul, you are going to speak to Arun Jaitley?
Amitabh, there have been incidents of, say, ink throwing, people's faces being painted black over differences of opinion, lynching of people who are alleged to have consumed beef, or alleged cattle smugglers being lynched, and then BJP and those associated with the government making remarks which do not really create any kind of communal harmony. On all these issues, I spoke to Mr. Arun Jaitley and I began by asking him that on one hand, there are these kind of incidents. Yesterday, he was meeting the Niti Aayog economists for the next budget, which is supposed to revive the Indian economy. On one hand, that is happening. Rashid, the engineer, is attacked with ink. And the President of India has to issue a second appeal as far as need for tolerance within the country is concerned. This is what Mr. Jaitley had to say.
I think the President's appeal should be seriously listened to by all and heeded to. It's the correct advice which can be given under these circumstances. We are a very large country, and therefore it's understandable that everyone can't have the same opinion on every subject. There are bound to be differences of opinion. But there is a methodology in a democracy how those differences of opinion are to be voiced, particularly when these differences of opinion can be on sensitive issues. Some of these issues can reflect on inter-community relationships, some can reflect on relationship with neighbors, some can reflect on sensitive states like Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. And therefore we have to be extremely restrained when we use our language. And the level of discourse has to have civility. We must raise the level of discourse. Unfortunately, what is happening is that some people feel that by an outlandish display of some kind of vandalism, they get a greater publicity. And therefore a group of 5 or 10 people will strive for that publicity. I think a few things need to be done. This kind of conduct where there is violence, there is coercion, there is vandalism, requires to be condemned absolutely. Those indulging in such groups, particularly mainstream political parties, must seriously introspect whether in a large parliamentary democracy which is gaining strength all over the world, which is being recognized because of its strength, these incidents don't bring a fair name to the country. And therefore we must seriously introspect that this is not the right tactics to be in. And finally, my appeal to my friends in the media also would be that excessive publicity to such vandalism actually is encouraging copycat vandalism. There were instances a few years ago, if you remember, that everybody decided to throw a shoe whenever he had to protest. Today they have decided to pour ink on people. Now this is copycat vandalism. Please don't give more than their due share of publicity to those who indulge in these actions.
But Mr. Jaitley, what I would like to know that these elements who have been found involved in all these incidents, the opposition's charge is that it is since the NDA government which came to power, these elements and these kind of elements are feeling more and more emboldened.
Well, there was shoe throwing going on when the Congress was in power. There have been instances of violence when Congress was in power. This has nothing to do with us. In fact, the government, let alone disassociating, we completely deprecate this kind of practice of any form of violence or vandalism being indulged in by anyone.
But Mr. Jaitley, on one hand, the party president has silenced some of those who were the loose cannons, were making remarks. What about the Shiv Sena? It attacked the BCCI office. It attacked the BCCI office because it had disagreements over cricketing ties with Pakistan.
Well, you can legitimately have two views on whether this is the opportune time for Indo-Pak cricket or not. But that view has to be expressed within the limits of democratic polity. That can't be done by just barging into a BCCI office itself.
Mr. Jaitley, what I would like to do, that on one hand, the government is trying to tell the world that India is the best destination as far as investment is concerned. It's one of the finest performing economies. Don't you think that all these events do undermine what can be called the improving India story?
I think globally we are doing extremely well as far as the economy is concerned compared to other parts of the world. We are taking the right decision, and these kind of incidents become a policy diversion.
But Mr. Jaitley, Amitabh, that was Mr. Jaitley talking about the fact that how there have been, and that the government does not only condemn, but will like to come down very strongly on these elements. One factor which can be very clearly said is that there is a deep sense of worry. Yesterday, Mr. Jaitley met the economist, and perhaps one of the elements which was being talked about, that there has to be a better atmosphere. If economy has to improve, investment has to get better.